Hey, what's up guys, Adam here, and you're probably reading the title below thinking, why has he got a Apple Cinema display in 2018? Well, let me explain. So the previous setup with the AOC 25-inch 2560 by 1440p panels, linked to the review of those in the description down below, I've actually been using these monitors now for over 2 years, and they are great panels. But the only thing is, when I use them for video editing, I tend to use one monitor to act as a program monitor so I can get the live full resolution video of the work that I'm editing, and I tend to use the other monitor for all of the actual editing itself and working on the timeline, doing all the color grading, so that doesn't really leave me with any more real estate to do anything else. So upon browsing, I came across these two Apple Cinema displays, and I know for a very long time now that Apple products tend to hold their value really well, whether it be their machines, whether it be their monitors, whether it be their phones. They tend to just hold their value in comparison to other manufacturers a lot better. Now these two monitors came out in 2006, so they're a little over 12 years old now. So the reason the price of these two monitors is so low is because both of them come without a power supply. You're probably thinking, well, that's not such a big issue. You could probably find a power supply on eBay, Amazon for maybe around £10. But you'll quickly realize at the back of these monitors it comes with one fixed power cord, and that power cord splits out into 4 different sections. You have your proprietary power connection, you have the DVI-D port, you also have a USB port and a FireWire port. Now it's the proprietary port that causes the main issue, because if you take a look at that port and then you go ahead and search for it on eBay, for example, you'll quickly realize that these power supplies do not run cheap. The lowest power supply I found for the cinema display came in at around £150, and that was on eBay for an auction. For a buy it now price, they came in at around about £220 and above, and you need the larger power supply, the 180 watt power supply for the larger Apple Cinema display, though you can get the small Apple Cinema display and get the 60 watt power supply, but even still that comes in at around about £130. You're probably thinking, how is a power supply costing such a large amount of money? Now it's really strange that Apple tend to price these power supplies at such a high margin, but we have to bear in mind that of course this is Apple and they tend to price things at a high amount, and also these power supplies, and since they no longer make these monitors anymore, are very high in demand, but there's pretty much a very low supply of the amount that's actually left. So trying to actually get your hands on an original power supply from Apple for the cinema displays is quite rare. But of course there was a way around it, so you can actually use an alternative power supply that comes at a much cheaper price point of around £15. Now I'll actually leave a link to the video where I found this solution in the description down below, so you can go ahead and check out the channel of where I found that solution. But if you take away the proprietary connection, i.e. cut it off, you'll be exposed to the positive line or the positive output and the negative line, and you'll also get a smaller power line as well to power the USB and the FireWire port, but I wasn't really interested in that. I wanted to make sure I just had the power for the monitor actually up and running. So once you actually add the positive and negative line into the power supply, you then also need a kettle lead, which are in abundance of amount. You can find these on eBay, Amazon, or wherever. They're coming at maybe a couple of pounds. And all you need to do is take the end off that power supply and then insert that into the opposite end of the power supply itself. And then you can take the earth, the neutral and the live wires and connect those onto the power supply, and from there you're pretty much good to go. Now this works perfectly fine if you only plan to power one Apple Cinema display, especially the 30-inch one at 2560 by 1600. But the problem with these monitors is when they were released in 2006, a resolution such as this was almost never heard of. It was pretty much the highest resolution to the consumer market available, and it came with a port known as DVI-D dual link. It was the only port that was capable of being able to power so many pixels. Now I had no issues trying to get the first monitor going, but I had a lot more trouble trying to get the second monitor, not because I had a power issue, it was a display issue from the graphics card. Now as I mentioned before, these monitors in 2006 had a really high resolution at the time of 2560 by 1600, almost a resolution that was almost unheard of and really high end at the time. I remember these monitors came in at around about over £2,000, and they're mainly used in a film house, so they were really high end monitors, and in order to drive that amount of pixels you needed a connection known as DVI-D dual link. Now this connection is not really heard of anymore, especially now fast forward to 2018, we now have ports such as HDMI 2.0 and DisplayPort, which is well capable of being able to power pixels of the 4K standard. but at the time that was the only port available to drive so many pixels. Now you're probably thinking that's okay, I can find a DVI-D port to DisplayPort, but you'll be hard out of luck because you need an active one, and those active conversions cost over £100. There's one from Apple and there's one from Dell, and there aren't many other companies that actually make these connections anymore. So I had to try and look elsewhere, see if I can find an alternative method. Now if I rewind about 2 years ago on the channel, I actually built a Hackintosh, and in order to get the Hackintosh going, I had to actually get my hands on another graphics card, a low-end graphics card, a GTX 610, in order to get the drivers working for the 980 Ti. Now most modern graphics cards tend not to come with more than one DVI-D dual link connection on the back. They tend to come with multiple display ports, and that's mainly the standard, or multiple HDMI 2.0 ports, but they're starting to phase out now with DVI. So that GTX 610 that I currently use to boot up my Hackintosh machine in order to get the drivers for the 980 Ti became useful now for me to actually insert that into my current machine, so I now have 2 inputs for DVI-D dual link. And with that I was able to get all of my monitors now up and running perfectly fine. So you're probably thinking, well, okay, well how does all of these monitors now perform? Well, of course I don't really use the bottom 2 monitors for any of my color work. I tend to do that on my properly calibrated monitor at the top, the AOC monitors, and I tend to use the lower monitors to do any sort of extra work on the side, whether it be, you know, adding a few extra windows in Premiere or After Effects. It just basically gives me a lot more real estate, but all of the color correction and grading work takes place on my top 2 AOC monitors. Now these Apple Cinema displays aren't bad when it comes to color. They're just, you can tell how over the years monitors have developed a lot better when it comes to color, which is why I tend to use the 2 AOC monitors if I'm doing any sort of color grading work. But the Apple Cinema displays do actually, you know, really do well, considering these monitors are 12 years old. So they do come in handy, especially for the extra real estate that I need when I'm doing any extra work on the side. They come in handy for that, and their color accuracy is not that bad. I mean, I can use them to an extent, but if I want to get, you know, really accurate color, I tend to use, as I mentioned, the AOCs. So this has been a different style of video. I hope you enjoyed and I hope you found it useful. And anyway guys, it's been Adam here. Thank you for watching. Take care, and of course I'll see you guys in the next tech video. Bye for now.